Hello, welcome to the Sonia and Richard show. Today, I'm just going to be asking Richard a bit about his past experience, what got him into estate planning, um, just to know a bit more about his background and his story, right?
Yeah.
So, Richard, just to give us some background information, what got you into the whole estate planning industry?
Uh, yeah. So I started off in the financial education space 2008, 2009. Originally, I was a mortgage broker, self-employed mortgage broker. I was doing really well. Then the stock, the crash took place, 2007, 2008. And long and short of it, I had to shut down the mortgage company, um, mortgage business that I had, lay off staff and all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure many people had to endure. And I was good at my role. Disappointed that how I got myself into that position. Uh, Learned a lot about. I thought I knew about money and banking, and realised I had no clue. And learned a lot about how money works and how banking works in the UK. And kind of went on a journey. And long and short of it, decided I'm not gonna. I made a lot of mistakes, and I didn't want to make other people repeat the same mistakes that I had made, especially through financial ignorance.
Mhm.
So I originally started a business, online education business called Wealth Guardian Education, which is just still about. Um, and then learning loads about trusts and got involved in trusts quite heavily. And then I realized, let me learn more about will writing. Didn't enjoy will writing. Then someone introduced me to estate planning, and my background's in engineering, so I loved it. I like conductor water, just literally the problem solving aspects, just the learning, being able to solve problems, and my sales background, just being able to help people. And that's it. I haven't looked back since, and that was 2019. So and here I
Okay.
am. Yeah,
So just going back, you mentioned how you had a mortgage business
yeah,
and you had to lay off staff. So if you want to go into more about your story
yeah,
and your past and your personal experiences, with your financial situation, because we're aware it's on the website as well.
yeah.
Um, what happened to you that made you want to, as you've mentioned a few times, especially in your webinars, how you were kind of angry at the system,
Uh-huh.
and how you wanted to educate more people based on your own personal experiences. So do you want to go into that a bit more?
Yeah. Where do I start? So I guess I didn't understand. I didn't have any financial acumen, and I thought I did. And I was a very good mortgage broker, so I got lots and lots and lots of people into debt, and that made me angry when I realised how the banking system really works. I'm not going to go into too much of that here. Um, so I thought, well, 1 minute I'm really good at my role, and knew all of the small print and underwriting and getting deals through and helping clients. And I specialize in like the buy to let and the self certified market back then. Um, and so having no option, or what do I do next? Having shut the business down, and then understanding the banking system, I kind of went down a rabbit hole, and I became a real rebel, I think, to the system, being polite, um, and just didn't want to kind of participate anymore. So I was very angry about debt and banking and things like that. And I didn't just have a mortgage business; we also had um, a property business. So between myself and my wife, we accumulated about 28 houses. The dream was, you buy houses, you wait 7 years because on average property prices double 7 years, probably longer than that now. And then my goal was, yeah, be a millionaire, and that's it, sell the properties and off we go. But that didn't quite manifest, and I didn't know what a bubble was. I didn't understand anything about bubbles. Those in properties in a long time understand inflation, understand um, buying in at the wrong time, and then new builders were just overinflating prices and all that stuff. So it was very horrible. So between shutting down the mortgage business, 'cause I couldn't write any more mortgage business because banks were pretty much just stopped lending. Um, and at that time, my only acumen for business was, putting all my eggs in one basket, just having that one product, didn't really have any other products to kind of fall back on. And then the way I structured the property business, tenants weren't all paying at the same time, and it got very horrible. So then our backs were to the wall, very ugly. You can imagine, bailiffs and demands and repossessions and going to court so often. And I learned a lot. And I kind of made myself a scapegoat, but I wanted to learn how the system was working, so I did it the hard way. Um, and that's how I came involved with trusts in that kind of journey, how to protect assets and understanding how the system really works and how aggressive lawyers can be, banks can be, and who really owns your property, because it's not really you. If you don't pay, that's it. They're going to repossess, and lawyers who will collect. I wouldn't say they're psychopaths, but they don't care. Their job is just to get the money for their clients, and they'll do whatever they need to do. And then understand the law around bailiffs and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of was a bit of a rebel to the system in that respect. And so financial education to me was helping people not make those mistakes, and if they were in that problem, how to deal with it and protect their assets. And that's where the passion came from for trusts. So it was a hard time. So in some instances, it was a beautiful time from the learning perspective, and just the journey and the revelation I got through just understanding how the system was working and things like that. But then at some point, I realized, it's no point being angry at the system. It is what it is. So there's some rules that need to be played. So there's rules that are going on. We're not taught rules, financial rules in the school system. I had no one teaching me this game that was going on. There's a lot of people out there back then teaching about getting yourself into debt, good debt, bad debt, and leveraging, but they're not really teaching you what to structure, leveraging, how you leverage, when to get out, what is a bubble, when to get in, when to get out, how to understand the whole borrowing game, credit cards, lending.
So how are you able to teach yourself all of this financial education?
Well, once your eyes of understanding are opened, you kind of know what to look for. And then you find material that's telling you what's going on for donkey's years. I'm like, oh my goodness, this didn't realize. And a lot of things are hidden in plain sight. So once your eyes are opened, you kind of know where to look, or you can see what's going on. And I think the important thing is not to get angry. It's knowing how there is a game being played. But a lot of people, even to this day, especially men, will commit suicide over debt. And so just understanding the amount of people I've helped through Wealth Guardian to be able to sleep at night. Some people would sleep in their car because they're scared that it'll be repossessed, or a bailiff come and clamp it. You hear some really horrible stories. They're literally just frightened because they're in a situation that they had no control over. And then you're seeing a system of, you got money, then the money's gone, so houses are being lost.
Yeah,
it's not nice. Cars are being repossessed and assets are being seized in order to pay off an obligation. And people have rights and people have recourse, but they just don't know what to do, who to go to, where to get the advice. So I made it my mission not to let people go through that hardship. Hence, that's why I started Wealth Guardian Education.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
So you keep on mentioning the game.
Yeah, this financial game. That's what I call it, the game.
What do you mean by the game?
There's set rules that you need to learn. So, for example, what is a bubble? What's inflation? How does banks work? What does the Bank of England do? Is it owned by the government? What's the government's role in the monetary system? What does interest rates mean? What's a credit card? What's a debit card? What are the terms? What's the APR? Just basic financial knowledge. I think people just need to know that, but they don't necessarily know. Is the only way to buy a house with debt? Like, who says the only way to buy a house is with mortgages? I know it's one way, but it's not the only way. What happens if you don't repay the mortgage? If you borrow money, well, what exactly is a mortgage? People just think it's a loan. No, it's a security on an asset. So if you don't pay the loan, the asset's gone. So just I think these are basics that people should know.
So just to go back to what you said when
Yeah.
you said that you had the 28 properties
Yeah.
and the crash took place and you had to lose them because tenants weren't paying.
Yeah.
What would you have done differently with the knowledge that you have today that maybe would have lessened the severity of that situation?
I probably would have been a lot more of a switched on landlord, not so aggressive to just accumulate lots of properties. So, and you see it today, a lot of strategic landlords out there. There's multiple ways to buy properties now compared to back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So you do your homework a lot more aggressively. So, the tenant will be more scrutinized so they can make sure they can actually pay how much you're borrowing to buy the property in the right market. Just research the property properly, that you're going to get tenants. It's going to be rented more times than not. The rate of the mortgage, because back then you can get subprime mortgages and the rates were really, really, really high. You could borrow far, far more back then. The rules were far less stringent as they are now. I think from lessons from 2008 in the banking system. So, I think it's people are a lot more switched on and wise now compared to what it was back in those days. But no one was telling you that. All you were told is leverage,
Yeah.
borrow, get as much money as possible, buy the property, nice income coming in, keep yourself highly geared. Properties will always increase in value. Well, depends on where you are, and then if you understand how banking actually works, well, you kind of question when you understand what inflation really is. You kind of question the whole game, in my opinion. Anyway, I'm not saying property is not a good way to accumulate wealth, but someone will lose, just like the stock market. It's a zero-sum game. So if you get out on time, or you bought early, and you don't have any debt, you're winning. But you can't liquidate a property when everyone's selling, because the one who has the money in their pocket will demand the price, and the one who can borrow the most will raise the price. And so it really makes me think, well, in today, what is a house value? What is a property millionaire? It's a lot of rubbish, in my opinion. It's just someone's opinion of how big your portfolio is based on someone's ability to borrow lots of money. When the market crashes, then we see who's a property millionaire. It's the ones
because they
who have
can't
no
pay it
debt.
off. Yeah.
Understand what hyperinflation is. The amount of nations around the world, even today, are undergoing hyperinflation because the banking system has just completely gone awry. So
all that basically leads to all the inflation. The more that you can borrow on the house, and the more that people can afford houses, they'll raise the prices, which leads to inflation.
The more people that can borrow. If I have £100,000 and you can borrow £150,000, you'd offer more on the same house. Obviously, the owner's going to accept a higher offer. So the more people that can borrow more money, you're just raising the price. It doesn't mean the house is actually worth that.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about a recession or deflation and all this kind of stuff, it's like, well, the bank's not lending anymore. People can't afford to pay their mortgages back. So they've got to sell the house. And someone who's got the money, an investor with cash, because they're waiting for this time. It happens every 10 to 12 years. So they're waiting for this time.
The market to crash.
Yeah. And then they're going to reap all of the properties at as lower value as possible. So there was a time when people were buying properties, I think it was like South London, and they were in negative equity for like 10 years. So their mortgages were higher than the value of the property because they were overinflated before the crash. And they had to wait 10 years before the market balanced itself out before they could even sell it again, just to pay off their mortgage. You don't really hear stories like that anymore. So, and in this country, even if you hand the keys back, they will come after you for the shortfall. In America, certain states, you hand the keys back and you can walk away. So they're not just going to come after the house; they're going to come after everything you've got. The bank will never lose.
So then, how does one protect that?
That's why I do what I do to educate people, so you can make an informed choice going forward.
Is that where you put trusts in place as well?
Yeah, trust has a modicum of protection. Obviously, if you've got a mortgage, the lender's first charge, so they're still going to get their money back. But when it comes to collateral tax and external tax, and if you run the business and you owe money and You put parent personal guarantees in place and all that type of stuff, and they're going to come after it. Obviously, you're not setting up a trust just knowing that you're going to get yourself in problems.
Yeah.
But if your parents have done something like that, so that their assets are protected, so that you know that you're not going to lose your parents' assets, for example, that's just one example of creditors attacking, assets. Then you're doing the right thing. And so, if we can teach parents and business owners to protect their assets for their children, for future generations, so generational wealth is now transferred and ring fenced, all the better. But in that process of knowing how the so-called game works, you can make better choices. And I think being an advisor and a professional who's got been there, done that, got the T-shirt, I can hardly when I'm explaining to a client what the impact of being in debt or having someone chase you or solicitors or how aggressive they can be. I'm coming from a place of personal experience and not just from an academic, read a textbook of what could potentially happen, but they don't really know what really can happen.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. So, and understanding trust from a first-hand point of view of protecting assets for many different circumstances and situations. And it's not I'm not saying it's something to be proud of. I'm certainly not afraid of it or something that I'm regretting. It's just something that happened. And it is what it is. And it's not necessarily been a negative when you understand what bankruptcy actually means and how it works. But ultimately, long story cut short, the name of the game is to get financially educated so that you can help yourself and your family members to make better choices without the ignorance or without the retrospective lesson of, oh, if only I had known, so that we can move forward stronger. That's really my passion now. The anger's gone. I'm no longer I might sound a bit angry, but I'm not. I've learned my lesson, and I'm happy to contribute to society and do all that kind of stuff. And I'm not judging people for being in debt. It's just knowing why and when to use it, and how to use it, and having a get out of jail plan. Monopoly is a very interesting game to learn.
Yeah.
To know what to do if and when things happen.
Yeah. Okay. So just to go into our mission of why you've decided to start with the estate planning industry.
Yeah.
How would you use your experience according to our mission and what we hope to achieve and why we want to help our clients?
Well, yeah, because our mission, long story short, is again not to allow people to repeat the mistakes that I've made, and we're focusing on helping business owners who love their family.
Yeah.
Because people pay enough taxes in their lifetime, and they deserve the right to create generational wealth, and that's our focus. So, to answer your question. Sorry, repeat your question.
My question wasn't clear. Don't blame me.
Yeah.
I was just talking about your experience, your personal experience as well, how it's ignited that passion within you to want to help people. What's our mission in regards to helping them as well? So you've mentioned about obviously educating them and helping them create generational wealth. But what about also helping them protect and ring fence their assets as well?
Yeah, that's the whole part. So if you want to write generational wealth, it's all about that protection of assets. I mean, even recently, was it the 7th Duke of Westminster got married? He's inherited over 300 million, maybe more than that.
I think that's $1 billion,
in assets.
Yeah.
Inheritance tax free because it's in trust for generations. And so I'm sure he is, or family members, a custodian to wealth to make sure that wealth is passed down from generation to generation to generation, as much as possible without it being reduced or reduced in any way, shape, or form. Why can't we help other families do the same? It may not be to that volume of wealth today, but I believe families deserve the right to know how that works.
Yeah,
it's available to everybody. It's not an exclusive system. People are getting wealthier, even from the point of view of baby boomers. There's a generation, probably Gen Z or the millennials, that will be inheriting a staggering amount of money. The taxman is going to receive a lot of it. if nothing's been done about that. So now's a good time to start. Like, why shouldn't people understand how to protect their wealth? Why wait till you're later in age before you start thinking about it? It's too late. And if you really are passionate about an exit plan, you work hard for a reason as a business owner. You love your family, especially as men, we equate value to being able to produce and provide, and have something to provide. And well, what's your exit plan? Like, if you can't pass it down without being eroded by taxes, well, what's the point? Now, some people are happy to pay all their taxes during a lifetime. That's great, but inheritance tax is actually avoidable if you plan for it. It's not necessary to pay it unless you just want to. And some people use the argument, well, this system has allowed me to accumulate wealth, so I don't have to pay the tax. Yeah, no problem. But surely, what's your fair share? Yeah, and if you could keep more of that money in your pocket than giving it away, which is what a wealthy person would be saying, why not keep it in your pocket? So that's my attitude towards it. If you agree with it, great, we can help you. If you don't agree with it, no problem. We just want to help business owners who love their family to protect that wealth and pass it down generationally, so it's not lost unnecessarily. It's not eroded, unnecessarily. And we deal with the protection. IFAs will deal with the inflation problem and making sure that it's always accumulating in value. But yeah, that's our goal.
Okay. Well, thank you. I just wanted to ask about, you mentioned how wills and trusts kind of go hand in hand. Don't want to go too much into that. But could you have a trust without a will, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, you can have a trust without a will. I get asked that question quite often.
Yeah.
It just, everyone's situation is different. If you're coming from a family where everything's already ring fenced in a trust, and the only asset that you own maybe is a car, or you don't even own that because that's leased, your money, your wealth is in a trust, then do you need a will? We might have just a basic standard will. You might even not need one, because you know that the government version won't affect you anyway. So everyone's situation is different. Most 9 out of 10 people won't be in that position.
Yeah.
So 9 out of 10 people will definitely need a will.
Okay. And just, on a personal level as well, when you are helping your clients, what do you generally want to see out of the outcome after you've helped them? Like, what's your main goal when providing these services to your clients?
I think, to me, it's the peace of mind that you see people have. Every single time someone signs their will, there's that sigh of relief. It's like, oh, it's done now. And in my mind, that's one less worry on your minds. You could live longer because you know everything's covered. You're not stressing about it. And when people say thank you and they're really happy because it's all sorted out, that's the joy. And when you can solve problems, like, you study hard to be educated. And my background's engineering, so I love to solve problems. So when people come with a challenge, and I've got A, B, C, D situation, what do I do? And you can be creative and come up with a solution that will work for them, and then implement it, creatively with documentation and legal paperwork, knowing that it's going to do the job that it's supposed to do. I love it. That to me it's a reward. It's like an engineer, you're a financial engineer helping people to ring fence or protect or just deal with a certain situation to stop any negative family dynamics taking place. And to me, that's just so nice, because when you see some horrible stories of families arguing, bickering over money and wealth because things weren't done, and you can prevent that from happening because of just educating the family to be forward thinking, it really makes a huge difference.
And it's understandable how this whole process can be very emotional for some people, even their families as well. It's a struggle of kind of coming to terms of planning for when you pass, and some people, they're not. It's quite emotional for them, if being honest.
Yeah.
But as you said, after you signed and everything, it gives them a sense of relief. But what's a piece of advice you'd give to someone who won't take that step because they believe it might be a bit too overwhelming for them?
That's a tough one. I think, we all face some kind of fear. But if And that's why we educate, because then you can ask the relevant questions to see the bigger picture, to make an informed decision, even to take action.
Yeah.
Making no decision is still a decision.
Hmm.
Not taking action is still a decision. But if we allow fear to stop us from moving forward, then it's too late to do anything about it. That's horrible.
And the thing is, not even just after, your death or when you pass, we can do these things for our lifetime as well. So as you've mentioned, we have like the lifetime trusts as well. The will is purely just after death. But could you probably just talk around a bit how we can manage that in our lifetime?
Yeah, again, the reason why we help business owners especially is because their wealth can be quite complicated. It's a modicum of different facets of assets, and the way the tax and revenue law changes will affect how those assets can be managed. And so, from a wealth point of view and a tax point of view, so lifetime planning, the will only does so much. So in terms of inheritance tax for a married couple, for example, the maximum you're going to protect is £1 million. Now, if your wealth exceeds that, you've got to do planning during your lifetime if you know you want to keep any kind of reduction in wealth to a minimum. So planning is imperative, and it's okay saying I want to pay minimum inheritance tax or corporation tax. I mean, income tax or corporation tax. But when you're faced with potentially stamp duty, potentially capital gains tax, ATED, higher levels of stamp duty, and inheritance tax during lifetime if you're using a trust, or potentially even the way the company's owned, how many directors there are.
Yeah.
You got to get the right advice, and the wealthier you get, you heard of things of like family offices, especially if you start to get in multi-jurisdictional, so you've got assets around the world, especially if you live in the States, then there's certain reporting requirements. In Europe, certain reporting requirements. It just gets more complicated. You need a team. You can't just say, "Oh, I'll deal with that later."
Yeah.
And happy to look at the zeros in your bank account or statements and think, "Yeah, I'm okay." Exit plans, I think, are important, and so the earlier you can start to address that. I always say, start step, know step 10 before you even start step 1 as much as possible. I'm not saying to do analysis paralysis. I'm saying it's good to be forewarned, so you can be forearmed. I think it was what's his name now, Churchill. The further back you can go in history, the further forward you can see in the future. And I think it's important, it's imperative to plan, and be meticulously planning, even in business and your next business steps, so that you can make the right choices, and trying to find the people to help you make those decisions, because you get the right advice to make those decisions, and be willing to invest in making those decisions, or find the right people to make those decisions, is crucial. Yeah.
And I believe it's really important, especially if you have a family that's dependent on you, to take those steps to protect them if you're unable to. I think that's extremely vital.
Exactly.
If you have, young children or a spouse that rely on you heavily, it's important to want to protect them if you are physically or mentally not able to. I believe it's really important.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about risk assessment, right? So life insurance is so imperative for business owners, for example. Lasting power of attorney for individuals as well as business owners. That's lifetime planning, because there's things that a will only kicks in when someone dies, but someone can't make a decision because they are physically or mentally unable to do so. That can affect lives. And if there's no instruments in place, the government will take over, and it may not be in line with what you want, and the timescale may be way too long compared to what you need. And in data protection, GDPR kicks in, so even if someone else has the money, they can't do it on your behalf, etc., etc., etc. You see where it's going. So it's just to be, rather than waiting for an event to take place, prevention always better than cure. Especially if you know your wealth is starting to increase and accumulate. Stop putting it off. Especially if you have loved ones who depend on you. Stop putting it off. Take action sooner rather than later. Even just to know what needs to be done and how much it could potentially cost is better than just waiting for something and then
Yeah.
You know, hoping for the best.
You
Afterwards.
want to be smart and you want to be strategic.
Yeah.
With it all.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Well, anyways, thank you so much, Richard.
Is that time goes so fast?
I know.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you have, if you want to know anything, please just leave us feedback or comment what you'd like to hear us discuss next. You know, all this is for you at the end of the day. So please, well, we appreciate any feedback that you may have, and we will see you next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.